Right, now for a video I never thought I would make. We've got the Titleist GTS3 versus the TaylorMade Qi4D. Right, so why did I think I wouldn't make this video? Well, when I looked ahead at equipment release schedules, Titleist usually release a little bit later in the year, and TaylorMade are always on a 1-year driver cycle. So for me, when this was coming out, this was going to be defunct. But Titleist brought their release forward and TaylorMade went to 2-year release cycles, so here we are. So these are two of the most popular drivers on the market. They've got mass appeal, they'll suit an awful lot of players. So I want to talk to you about the differences. Let's get it out of the way. For me, there is no best in the game in drivers anymore. They're all pretty good, and if there was a definitive best, every single tour player on the planet would be using it. There isn't an equipment contract in the world that would stop them. They're all just a little bit different in terms of their looks, their feel, and their biases. So let me go through what I think the differences are here and see how we think that might suit your game. Right, so looks, this is always obviously very subjective. One man's junk is another man's treasure, but I always do think it is important, particularly in drivers. You've got to like what you're looking down on, and it's got to offer you up the connotations of what you want to see in your driver. Now, we've got two really different looking drivers here. You'll see in the performance section, a bit of a spoiler alert, there's not masses to choose between the two, but when you're talking visuals here, there is an awful lot. So if we start with the Titleist drive, we've got the GTS3 there. It's a little bit more pear-shaped than the Qi4D core. The Qi4D core's a little bit rounder. It's less round than it was in Qi35, but it's still a touch more rounded, where you've got more of a classic pear-shaped here with Titleist. And classic is probably the word I would use. Titleist very much know their audience. It's a very discerning, refined, classic, traditional audience. We've got a really clean head. The Titleist crown, it's just pure black gloss with a little GTS logo, no banner strips, no top edge lines, no carbon. It's as clean as it comes. And from the sole, again, there's not too much fuss. We've got hints of their technology on offer. We've got the split weights, we've got the weight track at the front, we've got a fixed weight at the back, but they've not gone over the top on the logo and all the branding underneath. Again, it's pretty clean and it's pretty minimal. TaylorMade as a company tend to be a little bit more brash in the appearance of a lot of their clubs. We've got visible carbon on the crown. It's a really nice hue, I was going to say the word here, particularly in this light shining down on it. It's kind of a charcoal, but there's almost like a little sort of coppery hue running through it, which gives it a really nice look in bright sunlight. We've got this leading edge strip here on the top edge. Because the face and the crown are so similar in terms of colour, TaylorMade felt it might be difficult to align the face. They've added this white banner strip on the top here, which I find really useful for alignment. And again, underneath, we've got a lot more going on. We've got a bit more topography, a bit more shaping. We've got 4 weights, movable weights in this section. And again, we've got visible carbon and a bit more brash in terms of branding. So for me, again, it's not a better or worse scenario. It's just what you prefer. If you're someone in the more classic and traditional camp, you're probably going to want to err towards the Titleist side of things. If you like to see your tech, if you like something a bit more in your face, then this Qi4D might be the one for you. Right, sorry to interrupt. Hope you're enjoying this video, these two monsters of the driver game. If you are enjoying the video, don't forget to like the video, comment down below. Which of these do you think you'd be gaming if you had the choice? Right, sound and feel, really important. So why is it important? Well, because it's basically all of the feedback you get from the club head, through your hands, to your ears, to your brain, and it has such strong connotations about how this driver performs. If it sounds a bit clangy, if it sounds a bit meh, it doesn't give you the sort of connotations of power that you might want. So it's really important, not necessarily for the sort of outcome of the shot, but it's really important for your enjoyment of that particular driver. Now, these are really interesting because those of us who've sort of been through the carbon wood era and started with stealth, you'd look at this and see a carbon face. And when I think about stealth, all I used to think of was kind of a really dull, almost wooden, super muted sensation. Now, if I just bounce this ball on here, somewhere near my microphone, there's still hints of the carbon, but it is definitely more, there's definitely a higher pitched, more metallic tone to that than there ever used to be. And again, once I bounce the GTS3 up here, I'm trying to stay quiet so you can hear it, there's so little in that. And that's something I've noticed in drivers over the past few years. Gone are the days where you might hear a a big clang from, dare I say it, a Ping G425, which was a really loud driver, versus something at completely the other end of the spectrum like a Stealth, and a few different bits in between. There seems to have been some sort of merging of the sounds here, and almost everything sounds pretty similar when you bounce it there. But let's hit a couple away and see what they sound like at speed. Right, so maybe difficult to pick up on the audio there, but even at speed, there's so little in these. And I'll caveat that with one point. There's so little in these off the center of the club face. They both feel really explosive. The ball feels like it's on the face for quite a long time before popping off. They're both really strong feeling drivers out of the center. There is a difference I found. I mean, I've tested these drivers an awful lot. As soon as I got them, I went for a fitting at Woburn with the GTS3. I went for fittings with TaylorMade. I've had them head to head in various scenarios over the past couple of months. And there's one thing I always notice with the Titleist, off center from heel and toe, I notice it more. It feels a little bit harsher heel and toe. Now, that might sound, the Titleist people at home might be sort of panicking here and thinking that sounds like a really negative point. That's only a negative point if you feel that sort of harsher feel heel and toe, and then you look at the launch monitor and it's doing some bad things. But I was staggered when I first went to my fitting. I hit what I felt was like a really extreme toe strike, saw the ball flight looking pretty good and thought, well, that must have gone nowhere. Looked at the launch monitor and it retained within a mile and a half an hour of ball speed, and it was a really tight ball flight. And that's something I see all the time from this driver. And I'm wondering whether it kind of might be the holy grail of driver feel. So you get to know where you've hit it, which a lot of better players want to do. You want that feedback because it helps your development within the game. But that's only useful if it's not negatively affecting the shot. If you're not looking up and it's dipping into the trees or cutting into the water and you're losing a ton of ball speed and the spin's popped up, that's not what happens here. So you get the feedback, but you don't get the punishments. That's something I really, really enjoy about this GTS3 driver and the whole GTS range, in fact. Now, the Qi4D is slightly different. I think it feels a lot better heel and toe. And I wouldn't say the performance drops off dramatically, but I think it drops off a little bit more than the GTS3. I see a little bit more loss of ball speed heel and toe on the Qi4D than I do on GTS3. However, on a different axis, if we're talking vertically, this might be the best driver I've ever used. So if you're someone who hits a few low in the face, a little bit thin, or you're occasionally prone to the odd, if you've got an idiot mark on the top of your golf club there, you're prone to a high strike. What TaylorMade had done with the Qi4D range, they've basically increased the radius on the driver. They've increased the curvature on the face, top to bottom. So when you hit that lower ball strike, you're not getting that super low risey spinner that doesn't go anywhere. And when you hit it off the top of the club face, you've got more loft up here. So it's staying in the air a little bit longer rather than dipping like it used to. So for someone like me who is prone to that low one, I only see about a 5-yard drop off even if I really bottom one out of this Qi4D. So that's incredibly useful for me. In terms of that feel, there's probably a couple of different categories you want to look at. If you're a heel and toe striker, if that tends to be your miss horizontally, I'd probably look to steer you maybe towards the Titleist. If you're someone who goes up and down the face a little bit more, thins and top edges, you might want to look at the TaylorMade. Right, so that sound, feel, looks. Let's get some data on these bad boys and see if we notice any discernible differences there. I've got my launch monitor down below, Foresight GC3. I've got a whole raft of new practice balls. Let's hit some and let's see what we get. Like that. Right, so the stats, we've got all the numbers together here, and predictably, kind of as I alluded to earlier in the video, there's a lot of similarities going on here. Now, input on both was 119 miles per hour of club head speed. Ball speed, there is a slight difference. I've got a little theory on that though. The Qi4D, I was getting 173.8 miles an hour on average, 171.5 out of the Titleist. So a couple of miles an hour slower in Titleist. Now, I think my theory kind of harks back to what I was saying about depending on whether you're a heel or toe striker or a high or low striker. So for me, I tend to miss high and low on the face. My bad strike's generally a little bit thin. I very rarely hit it too far horizontally offline, heel or toe. So because of that, the benefits I'm getting from the Qi4D there, I think that's flattened my ball speed just a touch. Whereas I think if you flip this test into someone who was more of a heel or toe striker, you might actually see the exact opposite scenario. You might just see that the GTS3 was a little bit quicker. That's my theory there. When we look at the rest of the stats, strikingly similar. So basically 12 launch on each. We've got 11.9 on GTS3, 12.1 on the TaylorMade, 2.2 of spin, a fraction more on the Qi4D, but nothing you'd ever notice, within a foot of peak height. And because of the slight ball speed difference, I was getting just a touch further carry on the Qi4D for me, 301 versus 297, but all very much in the ballpark. So not much to choose from there, and that's a commentary on what I see in drivers over the past 2 or 3 years really. Everything's become so much tighter. There's not huge distance leaps between models. It's become an awful lot tighter. So we're looking at almost identical drivers here. So what we're actually going to make the choice on, if you are toying up between these two drivers, are the earlier parameters of looks. So if you prefer a classic, more traditional look, you're probably going to veer into the Titleist side of things. If you like a bit more contemporary, something a bit more in your face, a bit more techie, you're probably going to veer into the TaylorMade side of things. On the sound and feel front, again, from a sound point of view, not vast amount in it. It would depend on whether you value the feedback that we spoke about. If you want to know exactly where you're hitting it off the club face, but not get too punished, you're probably going to steer yourself into the Titleist. If you want to be a bit more mollycoddled and flattered and you don't want to feel those heel and toe strikes so much, TaylorMade might be where you go from there. And then the final thing I think you'll be choosing on is figuring out where your predominant miss is. Are you a vertical misser? Do you go up and down that face, or do you go across that face? And like I said, if it's across that face, you might want to look at Titleist. If it's high and low, have a little think about TaylorMade. Two brilliant drivers. Not surprised to see both of them having masses of success on tour and at retail. I've got a choice to make now. Let me know what you think in the comments down below.